Hello and welcome to the Fantasyland Basketball Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mark Shorten. I'm going to try something different this week and not talk about how poorly one or two of my teams is going. Instead, I'm going to talk about how good some of the other teams are going. Anthony Davis just looks absolutely incredible. I think he's the number one rated player in the game right now. He is... As long as Anthony Davis remains healthy, he's going to be unreal. I think you can get him at some pretty decent MVP odds as well, and he just looks fantastic. So I absolutely loving that. It's good to have James Harden back on the court. Obviously, recording this before Philly hit the court, but it's good to see James Harden is back. Curious to see how that works, or how Shake Milton, who's been on an absolute tear, how that kind of works out. I think that while Tyrese Maxey is out, D'Anthony Melton will still start, so he's still very much a player that is worth owning. But it's good to see those guys are back. Lakers on a bit of a win streak as well. I think they're 8-3 for their last 11 games or thereabouts. Which is really cool to see. Boston and Jason Tatum just look unreal. I wish I had more shares of Jason Tatum, but I don't. All of the picks that I had this year were kind of mid to early first round, and I didn't have Jason Tatum there. I had Jason Tatum closer to 10, 11 or 12, so I wasn't reaching to get him at that point. Obviously, if I knew what I knew now, I would definitely be taking Jason Tatum in the mid, potentially early first round. Boston look great. They've got the best offense in the league by a country mile, statistically speaking. I think they're 5 points clear of the next best offensive team, being Denver. They're just looking really, really good. I was a bit concerned that Ime Udoka's absence would have a detrimental effect on the team, but it has not. So they look really, really good. So, those are probably the positives for the week. Again, not going to talk about how injury-riddled some of my teams have been. But, yeah, it's looking up. It's looking up in terms of the Fantasyland podcast teams. So, let's talk waivers. There's a couple guys here. There's a couple of teams as well that I wanted to focus on some of their players. And there's some that I think have got total season value. There's some that maybe don't. And are more streaming than anything else. But let's get cracking first. And we'll start with a couple of the Minnesota guys. So, Kyle Anderson. Slow-mo is somebody that just does a bit of everything. He's not going to shoot the lights out. He's not going to be a sexy player to own. In the last 2 weeks, he's been a top 100 rated player. He's owned in 33% of leagues on Yahoo, 6% of leagues on ESPN. And he's not, as I said, he's not going to drop 20 points and 5 triples on a night. He's not going to get you 12 assists on a night. He's not going to get you 4 or 5 blocks or 4 or 5 steals. That some of the waivers have that sort of upside. What he is going to do though is he is going to get you consistent numbers across the board. He just gets it done. He's fantasy goodness. He is someone who he's never really owned all that much because he's not a sexy player to own, but as I said, he just gets it done. If we're looking at his last couple of games, his last game, 4 blocks, 2 steals. Before that, 6 boards, 5 assists, steal and a block. Before that, 8 boards, 4 assists. Couple before that, 3 blocks and a steal. 2 blocks and a steal. 3 steals and 2 blocks. While Karl Anthony Towns is out, they will be relying on Slow-mo for more minutes. And with more minutes comes fantasy goodness, especially with a fantasy dynamite like Kyle Anderson. As I said, don't expect him to put up more than 5 shots a game because that just won't happen. He might knock down a triple, but again, I wouldn't be banking on that. What you are banking on is 5 assists, or not even, 4 assists, 5 or 6 rebounds, a steal and a block, and that's just, if you can get that out of him, you'd be happy because he just gets it done. Second player I'm really loving from Minnesota, and someone who I think has got some really nice value while Karl Anthony Towns is out as well, is Jalen Noel. Averaging over his last 3 games, he's averaging 23 points per night. He's averaging 3 triples. He's a scorer. I spoke about him probably about a month ago in that we're going to ride the hot hand. The opportunities kind of tapered off a little bit for him, petered off a little bit for him with Minnesota just running their starters into the ground almost. But with Karl Anthony Towns out, with Cat out, he is going to get more opportunities. They're going to play a lot more of a small ball lineup with Gobert, and then you've got Jaden McDaniels and Slow-Mo at the 4. Then you've got a bunch of guards. Jalen Noel fits that guard, small forward model that is a complementary scorer, puts up triples, and will likely get you, while Towns is out, you're looking at high teens as a floor, with a couple of triples as a floor, with a steal as well. Not much else in terms of supporting stats, but again, somebody that I really like as a streamer while Towns is out. 31% owned on Yahoo, 4% owned on ESPN, so readily available in a lot of those leagues. If you are new to the podcast, by the way, and wondering why I'm speaking about people on ESPN who are 5-6% owned, what I like to look at from my waiver wise is players, or at least at the point of recording, players who are under 40% owned across both ESPN and Yahoo. There's no point talking about a waiver who is under 40% owned on ESPN if they're owned in 70% of leagues in Yahoo, because this is not an ESPN podcast, this is not a Yahoo podcast, it's a fantasy basketball podcast. So there is people from a host of different platforms here, a host of different applications. So wanting to try and get as many people as possible and as many players under that threshold as possible does mean that we're scraping the barrel sometimes, but if you're listening to a fantasy basketball podcast, it probably means you're pretty switched on. So any guys who are on the threshold of 45, 50, 60% owned, you guys are probably keeping an eye on anyway. Next player I really like, and I'm keen to see what he does with Tyrese Halliburton out, is Andrew Nembhard. Indiana love him. Surprisingly, they're still in like the 4th or 5th seed, and they look really good. In the 2 games prior to today, 16 points, 8 assists, 13 points, 10 assists and 2 steals, 37 minutes, 35 minutes, 27 minutes, 28 minutes. They really like him, and there are rumors that they might start him at the 2 guard because he's that good. That's going to seep into TJ McConnell's minutes, is going to seep into Chris Duarte's minutes, potentially into Benedict Mathurin's minutes as well. But I'm still expecting that Indiana trade off Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. I think that those 2 contracts are going to go at some point this season. And it makes sense that they do that with young guys like Mathurin, young guys like Nembhard, Duarte, Halliburton, Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith, all of these young guys that they want to give minutes to. And I don't necessarily think that they are going for it this year. But hey, they're performing really well, so that's potentially an option. 31% owned on Yahoo, 4% owned on ESPN as a point of recording. And over the last 7 days, he's just looked unreal. Halliburton, I don't think he's out for too long, same as TJ McConnell, but I think there is an absolute upside there. And to run him or to ride the hot hand here. Yeah, I really like him. So somebody that we could potentially look at for the short to medium term anyway. Jose Alvarado. He's been on my radar, but we're not going to get 8 triples and 38 points out of him. It's just not going to happen. What we are going to get is an absolute thief. He's a sneak whenever it comes to steals. So we're going to get 2 steals a game. We're going to get 4 or 5 assists a game. We're going to get 10, 12 points at a triple or 2. The good thing is that he's playing minutes closer to 30. Earlier in the season, he was playing minutes in the teens. I think that New Orleans are going to be really careful with that. They look good this year, so I think that they're going to be really careful with their stars. Brandon Ingram's out. Zion, we know, is one fall away from missing 2 months, and CJ McConnell's not immune to injuries either. So I think that they're going to be really careful with those 3 stars and play Jose Alvarado more, play the next guy coming up, Dyson Daniels, more. Play these guys, Herb Jones, Najee Marshall, these guys who are fringe players are going to get some more minutes. But the reason that I like Jose Alvarado, he's only owned in 23% of Yahoo leagues, 7% of ESPN leagues, but it's the steals. Season totals are only 1.2. Last 30, stepped that up to 1.4. Last 14, he stepped that up to 1.8. And he's kept that going for the last 7 days as well. It's what he does. His assists have been climbing throughout the season. His points have been climbing throughout the season. His triples have been climbing throughout the season, as are his minutes. While he continues to play minutes, and he's a defensive guard. CJ McConnell's not. So Herb Jones and Dyson Daniels are probably going to, between the 3 of them, make up the 80 minutes a night, if that, maybe 70 minutes a night between the 3 of them. So it's a little bit of a pick your poison, but I really like Jose Alvarado for his full season value. If you can part way with the points, I think you're going to get nice return on assists and on steals. And then finally, Dyson Daniels, as I alluded to before. I'll be honest, he's probably one of the weaker one on my waiver wire list here. I wanted to throw him in here because I like the kid. He's only 19 years old, playing some good basketball. He's also an Australian. He's also out of my kind of second home in Bendigo. I really like him. The thing that New Orleans like about him as well, which is what I alluded to before, is that he's a really good defender, but they're also giving him some more playmaking duties. 2 games ago, 9 assists. 2 games before that, 6 assists. He's getting at least a steal or a block in pretty much every single game. He's getting close to 30 minutes a night. And his minutes have been trending up. 17 minutes for the whole season, but in the last 30, 18 minutes, then 21 in the last 14, 26 and 28. That's what we're looking at. He's going to continue trending up. As I said, I really do foresee New Orleans resting a lot of their stars so that they are good for the playoffs. They need to make a bit of a push. There's more on the line than just looking good for the future. Their future is somewhat now. So I do believe that, they're going to make sure that their stars are healthy coming into the end of the year. But as I said, I really like Dyson Daniels. I think he's got a little bit across the board. He's like a baby version of Slow-Mo, where he's going to get you a steal. He's going to get you a block or so. Points, 3-4 assists, 3-4 boards. 6% owned in Yahoo, 1% owned in ESPN. So he's going to be on your waiver wire. If you're in a shallower league, if you're in like a 6 or 10 team, he's probably not the guy for you. There will be better guys out there. But if you're in a 12 team plus, Dyson Daniels is somebody that you should really consider. He's also one injury away from being a really hot target on the waiver wire. So keep that in mind as well, especially if you've got a Zion, you've got a Brandon Ingram, and you're looking for a bit of a contingency plan there, a little bit of a handcuff. Dyson Daniels is probably a good way to go. That's all from me. Obviously, best of luck going into this week, or best of luck, I don't even know what week we are, maybe week 8. Best of luck for week 8. And don't forget to rate and subscribe.